This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Gunner and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, June 22nd, is deceased. You know, I always like to try to do people who are alive, but I can't pass this guy up. He was born June 22nd, 1947, and died in January 1988. But this guy was one of the best NCAA basketball players of all time, and potentially would have been one of the greatest talents of all time had he not died so soon. Well, he did retire in 1980 though from the NBA, so I guess it's all there. But his name is Pistol Pete Maravich. I know you probably would hear him in the news this year when somebody from Detroit Mercy by the name of Anton Davis was chasing Pete Maravich's record for most points in an NCAA career and fell just 3 points short. Now, Davis had the advantage of having the three-point line, whereas Maravich didn't. So that's where Davis almost had 600 three-pointers, so that's where it came from. But yeah, Pete Maravich still holds the record because Anton Davis is draft eligible and he's a senior, so he can't play college anymore. But anyway, Pistol Pete Maravich was a legend. He was born to parents, Press and Helen. Press Maravich was actually a college basketball coach. So, you knew all that. It was a tough father-son relationship because Maravich's father was the son of Serbian immigrants, and you know, immigrants pushing their kids to do well and all that. But that's okay. Pete was 7 years old and would obsessively, when in first base for basketball, would practice ball control tricks, passes, head fakes, and long-range shots. Of course, long-range shots didn't mean three-pointers because he didn't play with a three-point basket. Anyway, Maravich would play his seniors basketball in North Carolina because Press was part of the coaching staff of NC State. So Maravich became a pistol because he would shoot the ball from his side as if holding a revolver. So anyway, Maravich was threatened by his dad that if he drank or got into trouble, he would be in deep trouble with a .45 caliber pistol. Obviously, you don't want to do that, but it did do the trick. Anyway, Pete was not sure where to go to college, but Press Maravich was actually the coach at Louisiana State University, which meant that Pete followed them to LSU. Now, of course, at the time, freshmen could not play NCAA basketball, so not for varsity. He would have to play on the freshman team. In his 3 years of playing on the varsity team at LSU, he put up 3,667 points. 1,138 in his first season, 1,148, and then it's 1,381, averaging 43.8, 44.2, and 44.5 points per game, respectively, throughout the seasons. 44 points per game. Not even LeBron or Steph Curry could even do that. I know this is the 1970s, and this is like, a little primitive, but it didn't matter. Pistol Pete was 6'5", and he did fantastic. There were three factors about why his collegiate scoring record is what it is. Number one, because of the NCAA rules that prohibited from taking part in varsity as a freshman, Maravich actually lost a year to add on to his points and all that. And second, Maravich played before the advent of the three-point line, like I mentioned. And third, the shot clock was not in play yet. Because, the shot clock didn't go till 1985, 86, I think it was. I think it was 85 when it happened. But anyway, many of his records still stand. Unfortunately, LSU did not get to the NCAA tournament, unlike most teams. So that was shocking how you would score 44 points per game. Yeah, his teams just couldn't get to the NCAA tournament. Well, of course, it was hard because the winners of each conference got in, and basically that was it. You had no other chance. So, however, he was draft eligible in 1970. And with the first pick of the 1970 draft, Detroit took Bob Lanier from St. Bonaventure. Smart move. Rudy Tomjanovich was taken by San Diego when the Rockets were in San Diego before they went to Houston. And Atlanta, in a pick they picked up from the San Francisco Warriors, aka the Golden State Warriors. That was actually a big trade in 1970 when the Warriors traded away their first round pick for Selmo Beatty, who's a pretty big center at the time. Atlanta took Pistol Pete Maravich, and it worked. He was not a natural fit because the Hawks already had a guard scorer by the name of Lou Hudson. And, Maravich had a flamboyant style. All that. And Maravich got a $1.9 million contract. It wasn't 1.9 per year. It was just, total. Maravich did play in 81 games and got 23 points per game. He was on the all-rookie team, but did not win the Rookie of the Year. The Hawks qualified for the playoffs somehow and lost to the New York Knicks in the first round. Maravich would struggle a bit. But by the third season, he erupted 26.1 points per game, 5th in the NBA, and he was 6th in assists per game, 6.9. So he put up 2,063 points. Hudson put up 2,029 points, becoming the second set of teammates in history to get 2,000 points in a single season. The Hawks put up 46 points, but they couldn't do anything. In 74, he jumped better. He had 27.7 points per game, which made him second. He had Bob McAdoo and got himself the All-Star game. Unfortunately, Atlanta missed the postseason entirely. And the New Orleans Jazz were huge because they were an expansion team for the 1974 season. New Orleans needed a splash and all that. And they knew Pistol Pete would show some excitement for members of the public to watch the New Orleans Jazz games. Well, of course, Pistol Pete played in Louisiana for LSU, so that was easy. So they traded 2 players and 4 draft picks to Atlanta to get Maravich. The expansion team only got 23 wins. Maravich did score 21.5 points per game. Maravich, of course, would have a little bit of injuries, but his crowd-pleasing antics worked out. 77, he got better. He put up 31 points per game, which led the NBA in scoring, so he got a scoring title. He put up 68 points against the New York Knicks, which was amazing. It was actually the highest, at the time, it was the highest amount of points in a game by a guard in a single game. By a guard. Chamberlain and Baylor had more points in a game, but they were not guards. They were centers. Well, centers, small forward. If memory serves me right, I think Kobe broke that mark when he did his 81. Anyway, Elgin Baylor somehow was coach of the New Orleans Jazz. Unfortunately, New Orleans only won 35 games and missed the playoffs. Unfortunately, injuries would plague him with his knees and all that. So anyway, injuries would hurt him and all that. Unfortunately for him, that wasn't the only hurt the Jazz would get. Financial troubles. So New Orleans tried their best to make changes. They traded players to Phoenix for draft picks and cash. Unfortunately, that was not enough, and the team moved to Salt Lake City. And it was kind of weird how the team moved to Utah, and yet they kept the name Jazz, because, Jazz was not popular in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City in Utah in general would be known for the Mormon faith, and they're not really Jazz fans at all. Maravich did move with the team to Salt Lake City, but his knee problems were terrible and all that. Maravich would have to be parked on the bench because his coach had a strict rule. If you can't practice, you can't play. Adrian Dantley became the team's franchise player. The Jazz decided to place him on waivers. The good news is Boston took a chance and signed him on waivers. They had Larry Bird. Maravich was a hired gun on offense off the bench and got them 61 wins. So it looks like huge. Boston had the most wins in the 79-80 season, and it looked like they would be going to the NBA Finals, and Maravich would be getting to the NBA Finals, which would be great. Unfortunately, in the conference finals, the Sixers got them in 5 games. But Celtics fans smiled when the Lakers took him out in 6 games, thanks to a rookie, Magic Johnson. So Maravich decided to retire at the end of that season. So he played 10 years in the NBA, 658 games, 24 points per game. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1987, and both Utah and New Orleans, to this day, well, the New Orleans Pelicans retired as number 7, and the Hawks retired as number 44. He still was named to the 75th anniversary team, even though that people thought that lots more current players would do it. But Pistol Pete was just amazing. He could play with the best of them. If the three-point line was actually any indication, it would have been huge for him. He probably would have had a lot more points. He only went to 4 playoffs as a player of 26 games. Maravich actually was a recluse for a couple years after injuries and all that. He was searching for life. He tried yoga, Hinduism, vegetarianism, macrobiotics. But then eventually he became a born-again Christian, embracing the evangelical Christianity. And he said, I want to be remembered as a Christian, a person that serves him, aka Jesus, to the utmost, not as a basketball player. Unfortunately, in a pickup basketball game at his church in Pasadena, California, he collapsed and died of heart failure at the age of 40. Maravich actually flew out from his home in Covington, Louisiana to tape a segment for author James Dobson's radio show. Maravich said he felt great, but then a minute later he died. He had a rare congenital defect. He was missing a left coronary artery, a vessel that supplies blood to the muscle fibers of the heart. And his right artery was enlarged and compensated for the defect. Obviously. Maravich was survived by his wife Jackie and 2 sons. So anyway, both sons would actually play collegiate basketball. Josh would play at LSU, although he was not really that good. You know, they still wanted it. All that. They were inspired. LSU was told you should have a statue of Maravich outside the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. The only problem was that because Maravich actually didn't graduate, he fell a few credits short. There was supposed to be some requirement for monument to student athletes. However, the LSU Hall of Fame Committee in 2016 unanimously passed it that they should let it. The statue would finally be erected July 2022, but still, it was huge. He was a legend for LSU and all that. After Maravich's death, LSU's basketball court was named the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. He was a legend. He was named to the 50th and 75th anniversary teams. But the worst thing about the 96, when they did the halftime show for the 50 greatest players in NBA history, one missed out because he was at another commitment, and Pistol Pete was the only other guy who was not there. He was deceased, but his 2 sons represented him at halftime. Yeah, lots of stuff for LSU and all that. He was an LSU icon, and also in the NBA. I mean, yeah, he only had 1 scoring title, but hey, his number 7 number has been retired by Utah and New Orleans, even though he never played for them. But, you know, New Orleans gave him a hand, making him number 7. And Atlanta even retired his number 44. And yeah, he does have some NBA records. He has the most free throws in a quarter with 14 in the 3rd quarter in 1973. Well, he had that record in 73, but Vince Carter broke that in 2005. Part of the 2nd pair of teammates in NBA history to score 2,000 points or more in a season, with Lou Hudson. And still ranks 4th in NBA history for most free throws without a miss in one game. 18 when he did it against Buffalo. And 5th for free throws in a game. 23 in a double overtime game against the Knicks. But yeah, Pistol Pete was just that damn good. Anyway, I'm jumped. I'm gonna do.